You're watching the Politic-It Podcast.
Good evening. Welcome to Politic-It Podcast. Tonight we have Dr. Kirk Moore with us and Jaime Renda from Path Forward Utah. Let's talk about what just happened to you.
We had a 5-day trial for fraud and destruction of government property. And we went through 2 days of jury selection, and then we had 3 days of prosecutorial witness presentation. And we thought we were doing really well. I've been talking about this all week. Friday afternoon, we meet with our attorneys, and we got to the point where, our discussion was, just didn't think that they had proved their case. We didn't think that they had proved fraud. We didn't think that they even proved that they still owned it when it was in my office. We didn't think they even met the threshold for it to be a $1,000 loss to the government. So therefore, it's not a felony. And so that was our discussion. And I went home that night thinking, feeling pretty good. We just had 3 days. We've got maybe a day and a half more with other witnesses. And
You felt like you had the jury with you anyway.
well, I don't know. Who knows, right?
Yeah,
that's
right.
the struggle is, when you send it to a jury, you're just kind of like, okay, now what, right? But we felt pretty good. We felt like we'd had a good week. We felt that we had undermined their arguments pretty significantly, and I think that we felt that they struggled a little bit with kind of presenting the facts the way they wanted them to be presented to the jury. But again, you don't know.
Right.
So I'm at home Friday night. I'm awake until 1 a.m. Just thinking about this. We talked about the exhaustion and
Right.
and everything.
Yeah.
I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I get out of bed and I go. I make chai tea in the morning, so I went and sat out on my deck. It was actually a little cool. It was one of the cooler nights, cooler mornings. It was 65 degrees, so I had to put actually a sweatshirt on and sit outside. And I'm sitting there and I'm just pondering this. I'm just kind of like, is this really, I'm a smart guy, okay, but I'm not necessarily the sharpest tool in the shed. There's other people out there that are a lot more, a lot smarter than I am, maybe even a little bit more clever than I am and everything. But I was pretty confident. I'm just sitting here and I'm saying to myself, what am I missing? What am I missing? What do the jurors see that I'm not seeing? Because I'm obviously biased. I'm obviously thinking and looking at the way my attorney presented it versus what they presented, and I have a different perspective on it. And so I'm trying to put myself in their shoes to see what is it that they did and they said that's going to give them an argument that's going to give them a leg up. And I couldn't find anything. And then 8:30 in the morning, I get a phone call from my attorney, and Kathy, and she's normally, pretty happy-go-lucky, hey, how's it going? And that's what she was like. She's like, hey, who are you sitting there with? I go, I'm sitting here talking to my mom. And she goes, why don't you put her on speaker? And I said to myself, I didn't say it out loud, I said to myself, oh, because, one of the last times I got in trouble, I got thrown in jail for 22 days. This time I'm sitting here going, okay, what did I do? I haven't communicated with anybody, I haven't done anything. But then in the back of my mind, all this is going through my mind, 15 seconds. And I'm thinking, she's not going to have me violate, attorney-client privilege if it's something that's related to my case that somebody else can't hear. And so she goes, are you sitting down? I go, no. She said, well, the prosecutor's just called. The Attorney General in an hour is going to announce that your case has been dismissed. And I don't know if you've watched any of my videos. I know that Jaime has. She's seen me, and I'm see it a little bit now. I'm a pretty emotional guy, okay? I'm not a very good poker player because I just, I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I literally collapsed on the floor and just started bawling. And my mom was too, and it took us, I felt like it was 2 minutes. It was probably, 15 seconds, but it was just a surreal feeling. And she's told me the story. They called her. She thought it was a joke. She said, are you guys playing a prank on me? Is this April Fool's? They're like, no, we're not happy about it, but the Attorney General is going to dismiss the case, and they're going to have an announcement here in an hour. So we've hung up the phone. She said, I tried calling David, your other attorney, but he must still be sleeping. I'll try him again. In the meantime, David called me, and I was on the phone with her, and they didn't answer the call, and, anyway. And from that point forward, it was just, kind of like, here we go. So then you knew about it.
But you said they said they weren't happy about it. So they're telling your attorney up front that they weren't happy that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know if they did use the words they weren't happy. They probably used the words that it wasn't their decision.
Right.
Okay, like, we didn't want this. This isn't what we asked for.
Well, they put a lot of time into preparing this case,
yeah,
right?
They put a lot of money into it. Can you imagine this? And look at this. We're talking about $28,800 of fraud. Okay, $28,000. They probably spent $800,000. Okay. Just this year alone, getting prepared for trial, the amount of time and everything else. They paid Phil Vitti, who is the acting U.S. attorney, paid almost his whole office staff to come in on Wednesday morning and sit in the, call them bleachers or stands or whatever, behind the prosecution, just so that it would look like they had a bunch of people in there, okay? Because our side was full. I mean, there was a what do you call it? Another room that was full. Yeah. What do you call that? Overflow room.
Yeah.
So they had
we
another.
had some of our people that were going over there, and I kept going, this side, guys.
Oh yeah, no, I saw that too.
Yeah.
And then when we had a bunch of media, they were putting all the media on that side in the back row. Yeah. So yeah, I mean,
it made it look like that to the jury.
So it made it look like that, and maybe I don't know, somebody's sketching photos or sketching pictures and stuff. But yeah, no, and so just think about that. Full day salary for for the office in that building is probably $15,000 or more, right? And then they always had people there. They had other attorneys there, and maybe some of their investigators, some of the people that they work with. They were all sitting in the in the bleachers behind
so let's rewind just a little bit. That I'm sure was a very emotional moment. I love the way you talked about that. Let's go back. Why did you do this?
Because it's the right thing to do. That's it.
That's about all you can say, huh?
It's not like I sat down and had this ulterior motive, let's screw the government. It's not like I said, I'm anti-vaccine and I just want to throw this shit away. Excuse my French, sorry.
No.
I had no motive. I wasn't making any money. I wasn't asking any money. I didn't even ask for people to donate to that organization that people were donating to for at least 6 months. And the only reason that happened is because some of my patients were saying, hey, you are seeing a lot of people, you are helping out a lot of people, how can we help you? I said, I don't want any money, I don't want to do this, I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do, I'm doing it because people are asking me to do it. If you have the inkling and if you want to, please donate to this organization. This was an organization that I'd been to the House and Senate. I testified at some of the committee hearings regarding bills, passing the mask bill that limited the Utah Health Department to only 30 days until they had to go to the legislature, helping pass that bill that required anybody who said in order for you to have a vaccine, you also have to give them an option for a waiver and exemption, and you have to give them the option to all waivers and exemptions, not just a religious one or personal one or medical one. You have to give.
And you were helping with that.
And I testified on behalf of both of those bills, yes. And so I knew this organization, I knew who they were. We went to meetings, I think it was, I can't remember if it was once a week or once a month, but I was going to pretty regular meetings, and we were organizing who was going to be there, what we were going to do, and everything else. And so then when somebody asked me, donate to this, donate to this organization, they're running advertisements, and they're able to pay people, they're able to, get some, literature out there and use things to help cover their expenses. And this is an Indian couple. They're on a green card, okay? The guy's a physicist, his wife has an MS degree or has a master's degree in psychology or something, and they're working here. And he works for a company over on the East Coast. He had no reason to do this. He's not an American citizen. He's not somebody that, that's looking to kind of cause trouble. But he just had this passion to try to make sure that our Constitution was being used and being implemented the way it was supposed to be.
And that obviously was something that drove you, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a constitutional thing. I mean,
This is America, right?
This is America. Who's got the right to do what they did in Nazi Germany, to have you walking around, show me your papers? That's kind of what was happening. Get into a gym, get into a church, to go to dinner, to go see your elderly parents or elderly, grandparents or something at a nursing home or hospital or whatever. You had to show your papers. So I don't know if I've told this story. I just got interviewed tonight by ABC4.
Okay.
And the one question they asked me was, "Are you vaccinated?" And I said, "No. You know that I'm not. Are you?" And she got kind of embarrassed, because...
And she's like, well, I don't have to tell you.
I don't have to tell you. And I'm just kind of like, well, that's exactly what we were doing. 10 years ago, that's a HIPAA violation. 10 years ago, somebody doing that out of a medical office or looking up some of that information can get thrown in jail by the federal government for violating people's privacy. Okay? 5 years later in 2020, 2021, it's now all of a sudden a requirement. I was going to say legal, but it was never legal. Okay? The CDC is a advisory agency only. Okay? They are they're what do you call it? Their Bill of Rights.
Charter.
Their charter. Their
Yeah.
charter. That's what I was thinking of the term. Their charter is only as an organization to be an advisory agency only. They don't have any capacity to establish laws and make laws and require people to do things. They were making rules and laws that then the states and county health departments and city health departments were enforcing with the executive side of without ever having a law. There was never a law that anybody had to get a COVID vaccine. Never. So, and that bothered me. It's kind of like, if you're going to pass a law and you're going to hold people to a law, then pass the law. Right? Same thing here in the state of Utah.
Right,
You know
right.
how that process
Oh,
works.
yeah.
So, you have a bill, it gets submitted, you go through the committee hearings, it gets passed, it goes to the floor, it gets voted on, then it goes to the Senate, and then the Senate does the same thing, and then if there's any changes, then you go back and you do a reconciliation, you do all those things, and then you come up with something else, and then you both vote on it again, and then if it passes, then it goes to the governor, right? And then the governor can say yay or nay, and then you got to do the whole process over again. There was never any law in the United States that was passed, either in our federal government or state government, that required, us to inject people. So to me, that gave me license in and of itself. That was the way I justified it. There's no law that says that I need to do this, period.
So why did you do it then?
Because my patients were asking for it. I never gave anybody a card or a saline shot or anything that they didn't come in asking for. And I never kept.
So it's not like you opened this clinic to defraud the government and you were just giving people a fake vaccine just so you could get rich.
I signed, rich. I was paying money for my staff. On the stand last week in the trial, my office manager said she was spending 1/3 of her day, every day, 5 days a week, 15 hours a week, 16 hours a week, without getting paid, because we weren't taking any money. Okay, so I'm covering all that, and she's just kind of like, it was taken away from what it was that we were doing. So you asked earlier, you asked me, how has this affected my business? I lost probably 60-70% of my business volume, partly because of what we were doing, treating COVID patients, taking care of COVID vaccine clients and patients.
And again, why did you do that?
It's the right thing to do, okay? People were being damaged, people were being killed. My Twitter X saved post going forward from that day, Joe Altman told me that that's what I needed to say, and I took it to heart. I'm being prosecuted. I was indicted, prosecuted, and persecuted for not murdering and maiming my patients. That's the irony of it.
That's a pretty powerful thing, right?
Right. So, and I didn't, again, There was no, it's not like I was giving saline when they thought they were getting a COVID shot. It's not like they wanted a COVID shot and getting saline. It's not like they weren't coming in and asking for it. The only people might have been, 12 or 13-year-old kid or something who thought he was getting a shot because his parents asked me to just give him saline so that he wouldn't go back to school going, well, how did I get this card without a shot? You got a shot, you got a shot. And then how is that? And then kind of like, then school administrator or teacher or something going, yeah, what's going on? Where'd you get your card? All that stuff. I just didn't want the kids to be stuck in that position to be bullied and, and to, start investigations and all that stuff.
We're going to take a break. We'll come right back.
In passing the legislation, Senator Kirk Moore and I passed the legislation, one of the first in the nation, that said your employer cannot mandate you to have vaccine shots. Remember that? I was one of the first in the nation to stand up and say that. It's sad that we even had to get to that point, right? Sad that we even had to get to that point.
Thanks everybody for being here. I really appreciate it.
You're awesome, guys. It just warms my heart to see you guys here. Thank you.
Welcome back to Politic-It. We've got Dr. Kirk Moore with us. Jaime Renda from Path Forward Utah. We just played a clip that I thought was interesting of you and Mike Schultz at the trial. A lot of people showed up to help you, right?
Oh yeah, it was huge on Monday and Friday. Friday was a bigger day, but had a little bit more time to organize it, I think. And Jaime did a great job, and she's instrumental in getting those in, getting people in. We had some people that flew in. We had Ed Zoll from Died Suddenly was here all week, taking notes in court and everything else. So it was awesome.
So tell me a little bit about Died Suddenly. What's that all about?
So Died Suddenly was a movie that they produced, which basically, because there was all that, I don't know if you remember in 2021, the moniker on the news was, well, this person just died suddenly, died suddenly. And then actually Google started kind of censoring that term where you couldn't pull up stuff where you could find the papers that were saying died suddenly. And essentially it was just people that had died from a blood clot. And they died from those long, stringy white blood clots that were, 6 inches to 3 feet long, that the morticians were finding, during their embalming process.
People that... So what got you motivated into this whole COVID thing? What was going on?
So I started, I started believing that this was true, that this was real. I listen to podcasts when I operate. I operate on Tuesday, Thursday. I listen to podcasts, and I'm just hearing all of this devastation that's happening, January, February, early March, and you see all these quote unquote incinerators that are burning in China, they're seeing all their hot spots and everything else. And so I thought it was a real deal, right? So Tuesday, March 16th, I think it was, at the end of my surgery day, I went home. I saw something on the news, or I don't watch the news, but I saw something on one of my, kind of emails or, things that I listen to and everything else. And I called my office manager, said, hey, we're closing down. I'm raising 2 kids. I'm by myself. My ex-wife passed away. And I'm just kind of, last thing I need to do is get my kids sick. So I'm just going to stay home, shut it down, close the doors, have somebody there, 8 hours a day to answer the phone, just one person, and we'll just keep things going. Within about 36 hours, I was like, this is all fake. I had nothing but time to just sit at my laptop. It was when we had that the earthquake here, remember that?
Right.
And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at my laptop and everything starts shaking, and and I ran outside making sure that my furniture and all that stuff was not all busted up. My deck was still intact and everything else. But within 36 hours of me just sitting there and having the time to research it and look into things, it was a scam. It was all fake. Hindsight's probably a little bit, got me a little jaded in the sense, but, I just made a decision at that point that, there's got to be something that we can do. And then you start hearing that saying, there's just nothing we can do. There's got no treatment. There's nothing, just go home, and when you're dying, call the hospital, call an ambulance, or get your parents or patient or family or whatever to bring you in, and everything else. And that was the first red flag for me. There is nothing in medicine that we don't try to get to early. Nothing. Okay, you get somebody, you never want to treat, stage 1 cancer is so much better than stage 4 cancer. Stage 4 is when it's progressed and it's spread to the other parts of your body. Stage 1 is when it's localized and small, and you just do the same thing. You don't wait for an infection that somebody has to get to the point where they need to be in the hospital and have their hand amputated because you didn't want to put them on antibiotics for a little bit of cellulitis. So nothing about what they said about early treatment made any sense to me.
So you started looking for...
So I started looking for treatment options. I'm a doctor, okay? We all graduated. When you finished medical school, it was a joke, right? What does the last person in your class get? What's his degree when he graduates from medical school? He's an MD,
right.
Okay? So we all graduate with an MD, and then you go on to your specialization, but you're still a doctor. And you're still treating patients. You're still treating family members that have runny noses and ear infections and small little ditzel things that you treat, and you call in antibiotics, or you give them a steroid for this, or you give them some sort of Flumidine or something like that, whether it works or whether it doesn't. But you're still treating people outside of your primary specialty.
So you did what a doctor does, and that is you went and said, what's working, what's
Well, yeah,
not
I'm not working as a plastic surgeon anymore, so I don't have any more boobs to do, okay? So I've got to find something to do. And so I just started looking around. I'm like, there's got to be something.
So they shut your practice down then?
Well, so I shut it down first,
Yeah.
And then on that following Monday, the state shut it down like a 24th or 25th of March, whatever that Monday was, 26th.
Because they didn't want elective surgeries.
Yeah, so all elective, so I was a non-essential business, okay?
Right.
I probably, as a physician, probably could have made an argument that, as a doctor, I'm somewhat, I'm essential, okay?
Right.
But I was just, I was like, okay, you know what, I'm not going to push that envelope. I don't know what's going on. So I'm just continuing to research, and I think the first person that I saw that was doing things was Dr. Vladimir, I want to say Zelensky, but it's not Zelensky. Anyway, he's a Hasidic Jew in upstate New York who was treating people, and he was treating them early, and he was using hydroxychloroquine. So then I just looked at his protocol, looked at his results. He had treated over, I think, 600 patients by this time. He'd only had one patient die, and the only reason they did is because they didn't come to him until they were 2 weeks in.
And so you found out that
So I found out
what
that
he was doing
right.
early,
So I found out what he was
working.
doing, right? And so I just kind of copied it and said, okay. I had people banging on the door, not banging on the door, but I had people knocking on my door, I had people calling me, texting me, hey, how do I treat it? I prescribed ivermectin, or I didn't do ivermectin yet, but I prescribed hydroxychloroquine, vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc to everybody that I knew. Okay, and I completely wiped out the whole South Valley Walgreens pharmacies by calling in hydroxychloroquine. And then, and so I think a lot of places are doing that. And then all of a sudden, hydroxychloroquine, is not usable. It doesn't work. The federal government actually
you were watching it
confiscated.
work.
I was watching it work. Yeah. And the federal government confiscated all sources of hydroxychloroquine. You couldn't even get it through medical distributors anymore. I used to be able to get medications, used to buy bottles of it, big bottle, 200 pills or whatever. I couldn't get it anymore. So then you had to go to alternative things. Then later in the year, you're starting to see, hey, ivermectin's available. So then I started using ivermectin, and then it was a combination of both. But the first red flag to me was there's no treatment.
Didn't you find that a little bit bizarre that all of a sudden a treatment that you were using that worked wasn't available?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I've used this analogy all the time, John. We haven't been on any podcast before, but to me the analogy was tantamount to, I used to do a lot of breast reconstruction surgery, and so the no treatment thing was the equivalent to me was a woman comes in with a little nodule on her breast, either palpable or visible on mammogram, and you instead of treating it and finding out what it is and getting it early, okay, we were told as a medical profession, And whether we're told as a medical profession is one thing and what we followed is another, in my opinion. But we're told that essentially in that patient that has that breast cancer, you're told, go ahead and go home, you're fine. Okay, when it starts eroding through your skin and it starts looking like it's an infection, then why don't you come back in and we'll take care of you then. By that time you're dead, right? Which is the same thing that they were doing with people with COVID, okay? And so that's malpractice to me, okay? That's not what we are taught to do in medicine. That's not what we are taught to, how to take care of people. And then, we're progressing, and then the second thing was like, nothing's gonna get back to normal until we put a needle in everybody's arm. Okay, we're gonna have a vaccine. We haven't been able to have a vaccine for cancer for over 100 years. We've had AIDS that's been out there for 40 plus, and we haven't had a vaccine for that, and we've tried. And now all of a sudden we're gonna have a vaccine for the common cold virus, which is what coronavirus is, in less than 9 months with a novel technology that has never been tested on humans and killed all the animals in the studies that they've ever tested it on. That to me just was like, and that's what shut everybody down. That's why people were getting censored. I lost my Twitter account. I was in Facebook jail. Every time they would take me out of jail, I'd post something, I'd go right back in. So I just canceled my Facebook account. I think you were talking to Chris earlier about the GroupMe stuff. Right. So I just got on GroupMe. I got kicked out of our GroupMe. Did she tell you that story?
No.
So the reason I met Chris was because everybody in our GroupMe was posting about vaccines and where they could get them and how they've now lowered the age from 65 to 55 and you can go here and this place here has 40 doses and this and all this other stuff, right? And so I posted in there 12 reasons why not to get the COVID vaccine. Okay, and it blew the whole room up. Okay, there's 500-600 people, 1,000 people in this GroupMe thread, and it was just kind of like, who is this guy? I don't know. And everything else. And so finally, it just kind of like it splintered the group. The one group said, we don't like where we are anymore. All we like to do is talk about where to get a good good painter or a plumber or somebody's mail is missing or whatever. And I said, well, if that's what you're talking about, then why are you mentioning something about COVID vaccines? Because all I'm doing is just following up on what you're doing. So then the group splintered. We were left behind with, 100, 125 people. For some reason, I don't know that I was tagged the admin, but I ended up being kind of the quote unquote leader of the group. And I think Chris was either part of the group or somebody in the group knew Chris. And so I just called Chris, or I got a hold of her, found out what the name of the group was, and I messaged her and said, I don't want to do this. Can I just recommend that all the people in my group join your group? and so that's kind of where it went. But, and then I signed up to do the COVID vaccine. We talked a little bit about that already, and and then January 23 we get indicted, and then in July.
Was that scary for you? What went through your mind with that?
Oh, I knew exactly what it was. My staff comes back and goes, "Oh, the FBI's here," and I was like, "Well, not to say that I expected it, but it wasn't a super surprise to me." I was still under the impression that, one, this was not a vaccine, so they can't hold me to injecting something. They can't hold me to trying to do something in a contract that they say that I signed when they're not even giving me the product that they want me to inject. Does that make sense? Yeah. So they're saying, I signed this vaccine provider agreement, and I'm supposed to give the vaccine according to the way they tell me to give it. And I'm like, okay, I didn't do that, you're right. But you need to give me a vaccine in order to do that. So if you don't give me a vaccine to do that, then it's a moot point. And the same thing with fraud. When they accuse me of fraud, I'm like, the whole thing was fraudulent.
Now, what do you mean by that? You didn't give me a vaccine.
It's not a vaccine. It's not. The mRNA technology is not a vaccine. If you ask 9 out of 10 people, 99 out of 100 people, you stop them on the side of the road and you ask them, what is your definition of a vaccine? What are they going to tell you? It's something that stops you from getting the disease, and it's going to stop you from transmitting it to the people around you. That's the reason for a vaccine, right? That's the colloquial definition of a vaccine. And that was the definition of a vaccine prior to September 1st of 2021.
And then what did it become?
In September of 21, they changed it, okay? And they're saying, whoa, it's just updated and everything else. No, they changed it to basically, we are going to inject, the definition of vaccination became, the process of injecting a vaccine to develop an immune response, okay, to a disease, okay? Not to give you immunity. It's not even immune response. It's to develop a not even inflammatory. There's a word and I'm blanking on it right now. But it's basically to give you a response to a disease. It doesn't even identify, it doesn't even say to the disease. It just says to a disease. Okay? Well, by that definition, a saline shot does the same thing. 23% of the people that were in the Pfizer treatment or Pfizer placebo arm got redness and swelling at the injection site. That's an inflammatory response. Okay? So is it the needle? Is it the saline? Is it a combination of both? What is it? Is it the plastic that's coming out of the inside of the syringe? I don't know. My point is, you're getting as much of an immune response or as you would with based on a definition you're applying that. So that's why it's not a vaccine. And the patents for Pfizer don't give it a vaccine. They don't call them vaccines. They are gene therapies. So their patents that Pfizer was using as part of their process in this is they are gene therapy. There's no word for vaccine. Even if you go to AI, because I did this, get on ChatGPT, you say, hey, show me Pfizer's patents for the COVID-19 mRNA vaccine. And they'll go, and so then you question them again. So where does it physically say vaccine inside, in the patent itself? Where is the word vaccine? Show me the wording. And they'll go in a roundabout way. They'll say, well, it says this, okay, which is attributed to what a vaccine does. I go, no, I didn't. That's not what I asked you. I asked you to show me the actual wording in the patent where it talks about a vaccine and how this is used to vaccinate, a patient. And they'll eventually come back around to you and they'll say, well, you're correct. Then he calls me Kirk. Kirk, you're correct. The word vaccine does not exist. The actual word vaccine does not exist in this patent. Because they are shoehorning a treatment into a gene therapy product because they needed it to fit that vaccine. They've been using the safe and effective thing since the 1790s, 1780s with the smallpox vaccine. That's what their thing was when they were drawing pus from horses' hooves and legs and doing whatever it was they were doing with it back then, filtering it through coffee paper or whatever, and then putting it in a needle and injecting it in people's arms.
So let's talk, just in closing, we're about out of time. Let's talk about how all this stuff came together to get this pardon. Well, it's not a pardon, right? It was
a dismissal. It's even better than a pardon. How did it all come together? I think Jaime is, very instrumental in having that happen for us. Jaime, the people from Died Suddenly, I'm going to miss some names, so you help me. Jason, Jason Preston, Mike Schultz,
Carrie Ann Lisenby. Phil Lyman, Kristen Chevrier. Yeah. She went to DC on my behalf, I think, with Mike Lee, and spoke, to the administration there about our case. And I think I heard Senator Colmore went to DC too.
Yeah, and Senator Colmore, I don't know if he was in the same same group, but yes. So Kirk Colmore was there, and so I think it was just little birdie here, little birdie there, birdie speaking, and everything else, and all of a sudden now you just have this huge trial thing that happened. You had the rally on Monday, the Died Suddenly article that came out that got, that went viral, and then the rally again on Friday.
And a lot of good people that just showed up.
Some great people. They had no reason to be there other than just, kind of there to support us. And then MTG getting a hold of Pam Bondi and writing that letter, Mike Lee following that up, along with Thomas Massey from Kentucky and everything. So I think all of that just kind of finally brought it to her position. There was an article just out today, I don't know if you saw it in Bloomberg News, that said that Pam Bondi actually overrode the weaponization working group that she had established, because they had actually passed on intervening in our case back in April. and she overrode them and decided to dismiss the case. My favorite 3 words that I think I'll remember for the rest of my life is "It ends today." Yeah. Those were the last 3 words of her post, and that I just.
Now, I would like to add on that. Where can we go here? Because all of a sudden you have grassroots working with elected leaders and everybody pulling in. Where would you like to see us go moving forward on solving future problems? I mean, how can we keep that, what happened with you, and capitalize on that onto more?
Well, so maybe we add to that, we add to "it ends today" by saying it better not happen again.
Well, exactly. I mean, so my case ends today, but that's, to me, is the beginning of this continued fight. We can't let this happen ever again. They're going to try to do this again, okay? You know, I mean, the reason why we went from mask mandates to social distancing to vaccine mandates is because they know from psychology and from psychology experiments that were done in the 50s that anybody who complies the first time with what you do, okay, with what you ask them to do, 90% of the time they're going to do the next thing that you ask them to do. Okay, so if you've got a population that's brainwashed enough, or kind of closed-minded enough to do whatever it is you ask them to do the first time, you know that 90% of them are going to do that. You know that in our trial, the CDC expert that they brought in, who was the head of the whole COVID. Well, there was a COVID task force, which was the White House side of it, but then there was a CDC COVID task force. He was the head of that. And in one of his answers, I think somewhat of a slip of the tongue, he called us the enemy.
Yep.
Okay, he used the word enemy. And that just goes to show you that it's a divide and conquer scenario. You know, they use race, they use gender, they use vaxxed versus unvaxxed, and it's just, and so we just, look, how do we do this? You stand up, push back. If we'd have had 10% of docs out there that had pushed back, we wouldn't be here now, okay? Because they wouldn't have been able to take care of the medical people that were there. They would have had enough pushback that it wouldn't have happened. And you just have to stop being afraid. You stop, fear is, that's why they used fear. That's why they told you that, oh, look at all these people dying. Look at this. If you don't do this, grandma's going to die. If you don't go get your COVID vaccine, then you're going to kill your neighbors and, and all this other stuff. So that's one. We just have to stop being fearful, okay? Pray to God, trust in yourself, and just don't have fear, okay? For whatever reason, we're scared to die. We shouldn't be scared to die, okay? It's going to happen, okay?
I just wanted to mention something about 2 of your big supporters. One was Tina Horlicker.
Yes.
And Tina and her daughter went through a pretty horrendous situation with Child Protective Services. And we all think, well, that wouldn't happen to me.
Right.
But it does. And then Phil Lyman.
Yep.
He went through with the BLM.
Right.
And again, it's one of those things, could that happen to me? So I think we've got
Well, you know where they are now, right? They push back.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's what people have to do. Okay? For me, I'm so broke right now, I can't go buy a McDonald's hamburger. Okay? I mean, I've spent so much money on my, legal expenses. I've lost so much value out of my business that I literally have not paid my mortgage this month. I have not made my car payment this month. Okay? So I'll get there. I'm not saying that. I'll figure out a way to get back. I have now an extra week, to work and get back to business, because now I don't have a trial this week and a jury deliberation.
You don't have that hanging over your head.
I don't have it hanging over my head.
God bless America for that, right?
But it is a we just have to push back. We have to stand up, have your commitments, and realize that there's other things to do other than your job. And that to me is a different argument than not, like some people say, well, you should just go get the vaccine. If you want to keep your job, just go get the vaccine. That's not the point. Your job should never be contingent on having a medical procedure done. Okay? So that's a completely different argument. If you're going to keep your job to inject somebody with poison, okay, that to me, that again, it's tantamount to murder or attempted murder. Okay, the number of people that have been injured in this, Denis Rancourt talks about 17 million people in the Southern Hemisphere that have been injured by this. The numbers are, VAERS alone, a study was done in 2012, 2010, that was commissioned by the government to find out how effective VAERS was, because they wanted to institute a different model and a different program. They found out that it was reporting anywhere from 1 to 10% of people, okay? They have 38,000, 39,000 reported deaths to VAERS from 2021 to now from the COVID vaccine, okay? You take 10%, say that's a 10% number, that means an extra 400,000. And you'd say that that's a 1% number, that's 4 million people. That's 4 times the number of people that died in our country from COVID, okay? The first study that the CDC put out said that the people that died of COVID, only 6% of them alone didn't have a comorbidity. And the average number of comorbidities was anywhere from 2.6, 2.3 or 2.6, but it was over 2 comorbidities: hypertension, obesity, cardiac disease, diabetes, whatever it was. They had at least 2, okay, of those, was the other 94%.
Well, Tina's granddaughter got flagged at the University of Utah because she didn't have vaccines. So that's what started the CDC on her. So, I mean, I think we just got to stand up for each other and realize that you could be the next one. And what I mentioned earlier is there's free riders. There's people that sit back and let people like yourself and Chris.
Right.
Fight
well,
the fight.
what's that famous saying from the World War II? I think it was Martin Niemöller that said, at first they came for socialists, and I didn't stand up because I'm not a socialist. Then they came for the communists, and I didn't stand up because I'm not a communist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't stand up because I'm not a Jew. And then they came for, whatever, and I turned around and there was nobody there but me. Yeah. You're just that's that divide and conquer mentality. It's a time proven. If you don't know history, you're just bound to repeat it. And all these cliches. I'm sorry, but you're right. So one of my mottos is, do not comply. Okay, and unless you have a strong conviction to something, don't comply to it. Learn about it. And then one of the other ones that I talk about is nobody looks out for you like you, and that's not in a selfish way. You have to realize that your neighbors, your church stake president, your pastor, your boss. Nobody is going to look out for your best interest. Your government, I guess the next step up from that, your own government, state, county, federal government. Nobody's going to look out for you like you. Okay, so you have to realize that
I'm smiling big right now because John's going to create a song from this interview, and I'm so excited to listen to this song.
That'll be something. Thank you for coming in.
Well, thanks for having me. I know that I rambled a lot. I'm sorry.
No, congratulations on. It's a victory for many people.
It's a victory for us, but it's a victory for humanity. And I'm not trying to make it such a grandiose statement, but right now we have to do this. We got to pay it forward, and then just continue to put pressure on our, government authorities, our government, representatives to do the right thing. And making sure that, and it's not always right for everybody, I get that, okay? But there are some really hard and fast right and wrong things, and forcing people to get an injection of a experimental, untested product is not the right thing.
So I've been telling John about you for a long time, was I right?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Kirk Moore,
Okay.
thank you. Thanks for coming in.